Hello, Storytime friends. Thank you so much for joining us for another bedtime storytime this evening. My name is Miss Ann. I'm the Early Literacy Specialist for Lincolnwood Public Library, which just means that I get the very big honor and pleasure of being able to do these story times for our families with the littlest kiddos. And now that we're virtual, even big kiddos, right? Everybody loves to hear a story. Everybody loves to sing a song or do a rhyme. We all can use a little story time no matter how old we are, right? And this is my best stuffed friend, Fluffy. Fluffy has been with me since I was a very little girl, so that was quite some time ago. Fluffy joins us for bedtime story time every evening, every week, because we like to get in the mood for bedtime, right? We like to put our pajamas on, cuddle up with our stuffed animal friends, right? And snuggle in, start relaxing to get a good, nice night's sleep. Now, if you've joined us before for story time, you know exactly how we start every single story time, and that is our Hello Friend song, right? Now, our Hello Friend song has a few different sign language words, American Sign Language words. It has hello, which is just taking our hand flat, tucking the thumb in, and doing a little bit of a salute from the forehead, right? Hello, hello, hello. It has friends. I'm going to move Fluffy a little bit lower on my lap so I have both my hands to show you this one. Now, friends can be a little bit of a hard sign for our youngest kiddos to learn. So just keep showing them the correct way. Just keep doing it as the grown-up in front of them and they'll get it eventually. It takes a little bit of muscle practice in our hands because we have to separate out our pointer fingers from the rest of our hand, right? We ball up the rest of our hand into a fist and separate out our pointer fingers, and our pointer fingers hug, right? Just like real friends. I know, can't you wait for the time when we're going to be able to hug our real friends again? I know that I am waiting for that day so much. I think about it all the time. Our friends hug, right? And when they hug, they switch sides. They switch sides. Friends. Friends. And now if you're ready with those two, especially if you've joined us for Storytime before, I know we have some Storytime veterans out there who are ready. We can add two more American Sign Language words for our hello song. We can add time, just taking our wrist flat and pointing to it like you're pointing at a watch that you're wearing on your wrist. And we can add say, which is taking our hand flat and tapping it to our chin. Now I know that I'm okay since I'm at home. That's why I don't have my mask on, right? Because I'm nice and safe at home with the people that I live with. And my hands are nice and clean, so I don't mind touching my face. But if you do, if you're trying really hard not to touch your face because you want to stay nice and healthy, that's fine. You can just put your hand right in front of your chin and not tap it to your chin. Just right in front when you sing that part of the song, when you say that word in sign language, when you say in sign language. All right, Fluffy, I'm going to get Fluffy back here so we can sing hello together. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. It's time to say hello. Oh my gosh, we did such a good job singing together, Storytime friends and Fluffy. I bet your stuffed animals were singing along too, even though they don't have fingers that they can move to do the sign language words. I bet that they were singing along because they love Storytime so much. Now, the other thing that we do every single week at Bedtime Storytime is we do a little bit of a teach and repeat rhyme. Now, that is pretty much exactly like what it sounds like, right? We learn a rhyme, and then for a couple of months, every single week, we repeat that rhyme. So that by the end, by the time we change to a new teach and repeat rhyme, you guys are ready. You already know that rhyme by heart. You don't even need me anymore to do it with you. So our teach and repeat rhyme that we've been doing since the beginning of March, right, is, or maybe the beginning of February now that I think about it, I can't remember. We've been doing it for a few weeks now. I know that much. Is our this little child is going to bed rhyme. Now this has some actions that are associated with it. So I'm going to put Fluffy over to the side so that I have my whole body that I can move around. I have my whole body. Now, first, we're going to start by pointing to ourselves, right? Because we're going to be talking about ourselves going to bed. So we're going to point to ourselves. Point to ourselves. Now, when we go to bed, we need a nice comfy pillow and a nice comfy blanket. So we're going to make our hands make some actions that look like a pillow and a blanket next. We're going to take our hand flat and put our head on it like a pillow. And we're going to take both of our arms and cross them over, give ourselves a nice tight squeeze, right? like we're tucking ourselves into a tight, warm blanket, right? We're going to pull up that imaginary blanket. Then we're going to end with my favorite part of the entire rhyme. We're going to pretend to have fallen asleep. And when we're asleep, I know that I do. I bet the grown-ups out there are saying they probably do too, and maybe some of our kiddos. We're going to pretend to snore. We're going to pretend to snore. We're going to put our head back on our pretend pillow. Oh my gosh, I almost really fell asleep. Don't really fall asleep till the end of story time. Are you ready? This little child is going to bed. Down on the pillow they lay their head. They wrap themselves in a blanket tight. And this is the way they say good night. Woo! I woke up. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be awake for the rest of the story time. I promise. Promise I won't really fall asleep. Fluffy, I think we're ready to listen to a little bit of a story. Fluffy's asking, this is story time. Where is the story? Don't worry. Here it comes. Now in story time, we tell our stories in a very special way. Yeah, we tell our stories using the flannel board. And that's what we're going to do tonight. Tonight we're going to tell a story that I did not make up. It'd be so cool if I made up all the stories that we tell in Storytime. I would be a very creative person, but I'm not quite that creative. This story is a folk tale. Remember, we've talked about that before at Bedtime Storytime. A folk tale is a story that was told with just our mouths and our bodies, maybe sometimes some props like our flannel board that we have at Storytime. But it wasn't written down for a very long time. It was just told as a performance with groups of people, aloud with our voices. Eventually it got written down, and that's how we know about it today. But this is a story that's been told in many different versions. The one we're going to tell tonight is an Irish folk tale, right? Because this week some people are celebrating St. Patrick's Day, and we had our lucky story time. We had our lucky themed lunch break story time. So I thought that we would do a little bit of an Irish folk tale this week. Even if you don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day, we all love to learn about folk tales from different cultures, right? They tell us so much about what that culture was interested in, what they cared about, right? What they loved, and what they thought was interesting enough to tell a story about. This story is called Jack and His Comrades. So that's just a really fancy new word for friends, right? For friends, just like we sung in our hello song for all of our Storytime friends. This story is about a boy and his animal friends. Now, some of our folktale lovers out there might recognize this story because this story is really similar to a pretty famous folktale called The Musicians of Bremen. That one's a German folktale, and this one is pretty similar. So if you start listening and you're thinking, wait a minute, I heard this story before, that might be what you're thinking of. That's the cool thing about folk tales, is that even different countries and different cultures a lot of times have pretty similar stories. And we can tell that maybe they were both people, both countries and cultures that were concerned, right, with the same things, who had some of the same values, things that were important to them. So sometimes we can see those stories that are really similar, even when they come from different places. Now, this story is about a little boy. Yeah, this story is about a little boy. Now, this little boy could be a little girl, too, if you want to imagine yourself. If you want to tell this story at home, you could change his name, Jack, to your name, right? You could tell this story, retell it with your family. Tell it with the people that you know, your brothers or sisters, or maybe some friends. So whichever little person that you're talking about, you have a little kiddo at the beginning of the story. Whatever your little kiddo is named. And once upon a time, this little kiddo and his mommy were living, and they were doing a little bit of a hard time. They were going through a little bit of a hard time. They didn't have a lot of money, and they didn't have a lot of food, and they were pretty worried about how they were going to make it through without any money and with so little food. So Jack, our little kiddo in the story, Jack decided to go out into the world to seek his fortune, right? That's such a fun word, fortune. To seek some money and luck, luck is going to be our big theme tonight, right? Some luck for him and for his mommy. He was walking, looking around, seeing what he could see. And the first thing that he saw a poor little donkey. And the donkey was stuck in a bog. I know, have you ever heard of a bog before? A bog is kind of like a lake. And it can be deep, and it can have mud and water. It can have some trees and stumps, but it's like a lake. If you can picture a lake, you can picture a bog. Now, the donkey was not such a super good swimmer, and the donkey was really struggling to stay above the water in the bog. And Jack was a very kind little kiddo, right? I bet like you guys are out there. He was very kind, and when someone needed help, he wanted to help them, right? So he pulled and he pulled on the donkey, and he was able to help the donkey out of the water. And the donkey was so happy that he decided that he would follow Jack on Jack's journey to find his fortune. Yeah, the donkey was so grateful for the help that he figured that if he helped Jack, maybe he could repay the kindness, right? If he followed along with Jack, maybe he would find a way to help him. So Jack and the donkey were going along. Now, what noise does a donkey make? Did you make it? Did you tell your grown-up? Does the donkey make kind of a noise, right? Yeah, and the donkey was walking along making his noise. Jack was walking along, just kind of looking, and the next thing they saw was not Jack's fortune. The next thing they saw was a little bitty doggy. Now, this doggy was the kind of doggy, like a dachshund, that is small and short and very long. And this poor doggy was getting teased by some other kiddos, was getting teased because his legs were so short and his body was so long that the kiddos were teasing him, which was not very nice. And you know, Jack really likes to help someone when they need help, right? So Jack went over to the boys that were teasing our tiny little dachshund doggy and said, "Stop teasing my beautiful new doggy," right? Jack knew that maybe the doggy would like to go on an adventure with him, just like the donkey. And it was true. The doggy was so grateful that Jack got the little boys to stop teasing him that he decided to come along on their adventure too. There's our doggy. You know what we should do? Maybe the doggy would like to ride on top of the donkey. I think that's okay with the donkey. He has such short legs that it would be hard for him to keep up, right? To keep up with Jack and the donkey. So the donkey, I think, is nice enough to let the doggy have a little bit of a ride. Now, I think we all know what noise doggies make, right? Yeah, you guys got it. I bet there's some great animal noises going on at your house right now. So the Jack and the donkey, and the doggy, were walking along looking for their fortune, but they didn't find it, not quite yet. The next thing that they saw was a little kitty cat, and the kitty cat was very thin and looked very, very hungry. Now, Jack had brought along a few snacks for his journey. He didn't know quite how long he'd be gone, but he had already eaten a lot of his snacks. But you know, he couldn't say no to someone who needed his help, right? So he took out one of the last snacks that he had left, some tasty meat, and he gave it to the kitty. And the kitty was so grateful that she decided to come along too. She decided to come on the adventure too. There's our little kitty cat. Let's put our kitty cat down here. By Jack. Our kitty cat decided to come along on the adventure. Come along looking for Jack's fortune, right? Now Jack was walking along looking and looking for his fortune. The donkey was walking with him going, you remember, "Hee-haw, hee-haw." The doggy was riding on top of the donkey going, remember what the dog says, "Roof, roof, roof." And the kitty was walking by Jack's feet saying, what's does a kitty cat say? Meow, meow. When they saw one more animal friend for their journey, they saw a rooster, a rooster. Now this rooster was in trouble. This rooster was running from a fox. You know, foxes like to eat roosters, I know. And Rooster was so scared, but Jack ran up to the fox and put on his very brave, very puffed out chest and his strong face and said, "Shoo, fox, shoo." The fox got scared. The fox was scared of Jack. Fox ran away, and the rooster was so grateful for Jack's help that what do you think happened? He decided to join Jack and our other animal friends. Let's put our rooster on the other side of Jack right there. Let's put our rooster right there. Look at all of Jack's animal friends. This is quite a group of friends. Now, do you know what noise a rooster makes? Cock-a-doodle-doo, right? Cock-a-doodle-doo. But a rooster doesn't just make that sound any time of the day. A rooster makes that sound at a very special time of day, doesn't he? At the sunrise, right? When the rooster first sees the sun coming up, the rooster will greet the day by saying, cock-a-doodle-doo. So the rooster wasn't saying anything quite yet because it was starting to get pretty dark. It was definitely not sunrise. It was nighttime, just like it is now, right? Just like it is at bedtime. And speaking of bed, everyone had gotten very tired from walking so long, seeking out the fortune, Jack's fortune. So they decided that they would take a little bit of a rest in a forest. They all laid down, yawned. We're almost starting to fall asleep when cock-a-doodle-doo! The rooster? Why is the rooster making noise at nighttime? Doesn't make sense. The rooster told everyone that he had seen the sun. It wasn't nighttime. He had seen the sun. The rooster was mistaken because what the rooster had seen was, let's move our animals over here so we can show everybody what our rooster saw. What our rooster saw. Move our animals over. Our rooster saw a little candle flickering in a window. Now they saw that candle flickering in the window, flickering in that window, and they decided to investigate. To go look what was inside, who was staying in that house. They didn't know any families that lived in the forest, so who could be in there? They crept over to the house. They looked in the window, and what did they see? They saw some robbers, some people who had stolen stuff, who had stolen things. They saw some robbers laughing about all the things they had stolen, all the gold and silver, full bags full of gold and silver and jewels that they had stolen, Oof, Jack did not like that. Remember how Jack likes to help people who need help. And he knew that there was someone missing that money, missing those jewels. They belonged to someone. They belonged to someone that weren't those robbers, right? Jack knew what he had to do. He had to help return that money and those jewels back to its owner, right? Back to their owner. So the animals and Jack came up with a little bit of a plan. The animals creeped over to the window, and on top of the donkey stood the doggy. And on top of the doggy stood the kitty cat. And on top of the kitty cat stood the rooster. And since they were so very close to the window, they all made their noises. Can you make all the animal noises? Make our donkey noise first. Hee-haw! And then our doggy noise. Woof, woof, woof. And our kitty noise, meow, and then our rooster noise, cock-a-doodle-doo. All those animal noises were so loud and out of nowhere that the robbers were so scared they leapt out of their seats and they ran out the door into the rest of the forest, into the darkest part of the forest, and they were never seen again. Jack and all of the animals went inside the house. They found all of those bags of gold and riches, jewels, and they took a little bit of a nap because they were so tired after their adventure. But in the morning, they started toward the house of the richest person in town, right? All of those fancy things could only belong to her. And Jack and the animals brought those bags to her and said, "Here are your jewels, here is your gold, here is your silver. We returned it to you. We found the robbers who took it, and we would like to return it to you." Wow, this person was so shocked that Jack, who really needed money and really needed food, right? That's the reason he had gone out in the first place, to seek his fortune, right? To seek some luck for him, for his mommy. Well, this woman, this very rich woman, was so impressed with him, was so grateful for his help, that she made sure that Jack and all of his animal friends had enough money, enough gold, enough silver, enough jewels to last a lifetime. Jack and his animal friends were able to go back to his own cottage and to see his mommy and to tell her that they had found their fortune, right? They had found their fortune, and they had done it by the luckiest way possible, by helping people when they needed it, right? Jack had the best luck, all because he was such a kind person. And the animals and he and his mommy lived happily ever after. Yeah, they lived happily ever after. How lucky they were. Oh my gosh, you guys are such good listeners. I'm so glad that you joined us for that folk tale. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm going to go ahead and put some in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and put some books that have some other Irish folk tales. So if you'd like to look at them, share some with your family. There are some really interesting ones out there, and they'll help you learn a little bit about a country that you might not be familiar with, right? All right, now we have done our story. We have done our teach and repeat rhyme, and we have done our hello song. But what we haven't done is our bedtime imagination meditation, right? I'm going to get Fluffy Pick, excuse me, back here with me so that we can do our imagination meditation. Now, our imagination meditation is something that we do to relax our bodies, get ready for bed, relax our minds, but we don't try to close our eyes and clear our minds of all the thoughts that are racing around in there, because that's pretty hard. I can't even do that. What we do instead is we imagine something. We focus our minds on something that we're imagining, so that all of the different thoughts of our day, what we have to do tomorrow when we wake up, what we did today, all of the problems that we might be having, those go out of our mind while we focus on what we're imagining. So when we do our imagination meditation, first we breathe in like we're breathing in something really, really, really delicious. So maybe a chocolate chip cookie. Yeah. Maybe some apple pie. Yeah, whatever you really love to eat. That smells so, so good. You're going to breathe in deep. And then you're going to let that breath out. And when you let that breath out, you're going to pretend you're blowing out a candle, right? Just like we saw in the window of the robber's cottage. We saw a candle. And when you want to blow out a candle, you have to blow it nice and strong and steady. So we're going to do that pattern in and out. We're going to do that 3 times together. And if you can only do it 1 time or half a time, that's just fine. That's why we do it every single week, right? So we get better and better as time goes on. Are you ready for our first time? Our second time. And our last time, our third time. Does your body feel differently? Do you feel any more relaxed? You feel a little bit more sleepy for bedtime? I hope so. I hope so. There can be so many stressful things going on during the day that I hope that at bedtime you're able to do something like our imagination meditation or enjoying a story with us. That helps you calm down a little bit for bed. Now, before we sing our goodbye song to one another, I have a couple of different reminders for you guys. Number one, don't forget that you can watch all of our bedtime story times and all of our lunch break story times right here on our playlist, right? So you can watch it on Facebook under our virtual story times playlist, and same thing on YouTube. If you want to go to a specific story time or specific rhyme or story, you can do that. You can fast forward, rewind, all on your own time schedule, which is the best, I know, because we have so many different things going on during the day that sometimes, no matter what time story time is at, sometimes it's just too much to make it right on time for Storytime Live, right? So that's the greatest thing about recorded story times. We also have some great selections of read alouds, picture books, and chapter books on our Dial a Story. I know you've heard me talk about this before. Our Dial a Story is a number that you can call every single day, 24 hours a day, anytime you want. It is 847 999 7600. And when you call that number, you get a whole list of different books to listen to. So this week, we have some picture books all about luck and different kinds of luck. And we have some chapter books ongoing. And we even have selections from a grown-up book, so our grown-ups can listen to that book. Right? We have both of our books for our One Book, One Community program up there right now. We have our picture book selection, which is Outside Inside by Leywin Pham. And we have our grown-up selection, our chapter book selection for grown-ups, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. So we have both of those books if you're interested in reading them for our One Book, One Community, and then registering for some of our events that are related to those books. You can listen to them on Dial a Story and then register for the events on our website. The other announcement that I'm going to make is that in the comments for this video, I linked the handout for our lucky and unlucky story time that we did together in lunch break story time, right? And I linked those Irish folktale books so that you can put them on hold for curbside pickup if you want to share them with your family. And now it really is time to say goodbye to each other, to say see you later to each other. Now our goodbye song is the exact same as our hello song. The only difference is that we say goodbye with our hand flat and then closed, goodbye, instead of hello, right? Fluffy's going to join me for this one too, but she's going to go down just a little bit lower. So I have both my hands for our friend sign, right? Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. It's time to say goodbye. Storytime friends, thank you so much for taking time to join us for Storytime this evening. I hope that you and your families are staying nice and healthy and safe. I miss you very much, and I'm thinking of you all the time. Mwah.